I'm very happy to today host Dr. Joerg Andres, who is a tax specialist, but also a lawyer, which is a very, very unique combination. And on top of that, he's also specializing on crypto tax, which is a very, very unique combination. But at the same time, Joerg, you're also an entrepreneur. So you built your law firm, right? And so maybe without any further ado, I would love to give you the stage to briefly explain your background and who you are, and also why this sort of combination of tax, crypto, and law is so unique.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Max, for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here today and to have the opportunity to talk to the audience and perhaps give them a certain sort of insight of what I'm doing. So my business background, as you already mentioned, first of all, is I'm a lawyer since 1993, and besides, I'm tax advisor as well since '97. And of course, I had a lot of opportunities to get lots of experience over the years. And specializing in crypto tax was something that was, for me, very likely to do. Because, when I had my doctorate, my dissertation, I wrote down in 2001. And this was about the taxation, the VAT taxation of downloads in time where many people didn't even know what a download was, and I was discussing whether this could be taxed without having a sort of regulation in tax law. And of course, the tax offices tried to tax that. And after a few years, they found out this was not legal. Exactly what I wrote in my dissertation, So for me, it was really likely to have a look at the taxation of cryptocurrencies. And this I started at the end of 2017.
Wow. Okay. So that was still quite early on. Did you was that just curiosity, or did you see like market demand, or did people reach out to you? How did that sort of pivot come from?
Sometimes in life some things happen accidentally. So in this way, it was the same regarding the taxation of cryptocurrencies. First of all, I talked to a guy in the house where my office is, and he said, well, I guess Bitcoin is something interesting and all the cryptocurrencies. I said, okay, why not having a sit-in together, just a discussion what it's all about. This was, I guess, in August, September 2017. And I don't know why he didn't come in. And in December, I read about Bitcoin was a big sensation. So I started to have an investigation on the internet just to find out how it's about with taxation of all that. And I could find, several statements, but from my point of view, this was absolutely not clear. So what did I do? I guess it was the 30th of December 2017. I went to a local bookstore, telling the lady there, well, I would like to buy a book regarding Bitcoin. And I couldn't even end the sentence. She said, sold out. You have to wait until January. I said, okay, I'm not looking about a normal book explaining Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. I'm looking for a special book regarding the taxation of cryptocurrencies. And she said to me immediately, well, doesn't exist, needed to be written. And I said, okay, is this something I should do now? I was joking. But anyway, she was somehow not interested in. So I said, okay, I went back to the office. And from this day on, I decided I will have to write the first book about this. So I started on the 1st of January, making the plan. I will have to have my manuscript at the end of January, 31st of January. So I wrote day and night. I looked for everything I could find in the internet. And after 1 month, I had my core book, So then 1 more month, I did a correction reading, so to say. And another month after that, before Easter, the book was online. And then I went to this lady saying, okay, here's the book. And she said to me, would you like to buy it? I say, well, I can't buy it here yet. It's just been published. And she said, oh, okay. And then she found out, okay, that was me 3 months ago asking for this book. And I, of course, offered her and gave her a signature in, you know, with some personal words. And this was the beginning of the story, how I came to crypto taxation.
Okay, and actually, that's quite impressive. What were, you know, before your dissertation, you said the dissertation was about taxation of downloads. So now, if you could, in very simple terms, explain how should crypto or cryptocurrencies be handled in the face of taxation?
You know,
if I can ask a question.
to put it on a baseline. Just to make it clear, my sort of understanding regarding German tax law. If you're an entrepreneur, for example, and you want to do something, then finding out which risks are existing, it's very important to know what might happen if you are building up a certain sort of business. And of course, it's the same if you're just doing it in a private field. You should know what you might have to face as consequence if you are starting something regarding tax law. And for example, until today, we do not have any sort of definition of what is a cryptocurrency in German tax law. This is still missing. We have one decision now of the Federal Fiscal Court in Munich from February this year, where the Fiscal Court points out that, of course, the taxation of cryptocurrencies should be legal. But, you know, what is definitely taxed here is not written in this decision. So they are only talking about cryptocurrencies, they are talking about ownership of cryptocurrencies. The only problem is this sort of ownership that is described in such a general way does not exist in German law regarding cryptocurrencies. So there is a gap, you know, and the court somehow tried to explain that this should be legal, but the core business is not done, you know. The legislatory work has not been done before, because in Germany, it's that way that, first of all, you need a frame. You need a frame of legislation so that everyone, like you and me, we know in advance what will happen if we are fulfilling this frame, you know? So regarding the taxation of cryptocurrencies, such a frame is not existing. Yeah, and for that reason, they're trying to put this in another frame that is already existing and comparing it, let me say, with gold, for example. But I would say that cryptocurrencies here and gold there is something different. So this is not self-explaining. That is what I'm saying. And exactly this happened in the year 1999 for the taxation of downloads of books, you know. In this time, the tax offices, they tried to tax that, trying to explain that selling a download would be the same as selling a book. But of course, that's something different, you know. And for that reason, my opinion still is, if you want to tax somebody, you need to tell him before that this could happen. And of course, if afterwards he did not declare what he did, and he should even be sued for that, you know, then we are in another field where I say, well, I cannot really understand why the legislatory initiative is still missing. So it's, from my point of view, it's not important to have hundreds of rules, but in general, it should be said in a German tax law that the taxation of cryptocurrencies is legal, you know, then everybody knows. But this step is still missing.
So then a follow-on question to this. I mean, you have a lot of private individuals as clients, I would suppose. And what is a common case where somebody is maybe coming to you with, and what is in return the sort of the better way of handling such a consequence?
You know, a typical case, I would describe it in that way. A client is calling me, a client is sending me an email saying, okay, I heard of this decision of the fiscal finance court, the federal finance court in Munich from February, and that they said that taxation of cryptocurrencies is legally binding and that I probably had to declare something. And the rest of the story often is like that. People are telling me then, you know, I did this for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever. And of course, yeah, I made some profit with it, but sometimes this profit was just a virtual profit. There was no cash out, you know. So from this point of view, not just one client already told me, you know, I didn't realize that this might be taxable if I was just acting from one cryptocurrency to the other, you know. And now my impression is this should be taxable. Why? Because it's not ruled in the German tax law. I say, okay, indeed, it's hard to understand that if you're not engaged in this field, and lots of German tax advisors still are not handling these cases. You know, they are saying, okay, this is something I cannot do. So even finding a tax advisor or a crypto tax lawyer is not easy in Germany till today. And on the other hand, you can imagine if you're presenting such a case to the local tax office, first of all, they're saying, okay, this was a big mistake. Yeah, this guy should have done this before, and we have to think whether we have to sue him, you know, and this is very bad. Yeah. Telling them that this guy is nobody who should be sued now. He is explaining that even if it's late, but it was not self-explaining, that the law didn't say a single word in regard of this special case, you know.
So basically, I have 50 different tokens. I swap them in my decentralized wallet, and the German law would require me for each transaction sort of to be that should be traced and taxed. I mean, last time Jörg, we talked about the Austrian way of dealing with tax. I mean, that was really interesting. I would love to, you know, maybe have your opinion on exactly that.
Well, you know, just coming back to this point of taxation, the taxation is not in general done the way I described it. If you are keeping this one cryptocurrency you bought for more than 12 months, then even the tax office would be of the opinion that this could not be taxed, okay? But within 1 year, and this is what happens in most of the cases, just especially when very young clients who are younger than 20, younger than 15 sometimes, you know, they are just playing in an online game, and there's an online cryptocurrency, and they are having an exchange from one cryptocurrency to the other. Of course, I mean, they do not do any sort of bookkeeping, you know. They do not do any sort of declaration. They have never had any sort of contact with the tax office. And just imagine a guy like this who started at the age of 13, he turns 18, he turns 19, he is getting in his job, and somebody is telling him, okay, you have to have your income tax return, you know, every year. And by the way, he's talking to a friend of his, and this guy is telling him, crypto, oh, did you declare about that? You know, because it was necessary. Okay, no, I never thought about that, you know. This is a typical reaction, and having such clients, from my point of view, it's absolutely important that I explain the guy at the tax office, at the local tax office, who is not specialized in crypto tax. I should explain to him the whole situation. You know, this is storytelling, how it all started, what happened in the brain of this young guy, you know, not imagining that he could ever been asked to report something of these transactions, you know.
Yeah. Okay. And so, which brings me to the question. I mean, the German law is definitely still early in a way. What, in your opinion, what are other jurisdictions that sort of do it better or in an easier retail friendly way?
Well, let me put it in other words. I would say that for example, France or Austria, they are ahead of German legislation. And for that reason, I'm in contact with colleagues in Austria, for example. You know, so I went to Vienna this spring just to have a much more contact in this way, just to find out, okay, what are you talking about there? And my impression was that they are much ahead of Germany. Really, it was impressive somehow. And from this point of view, I think that, for example, this exchanging from one currency to the other, this is not taxed in Austria, as far as I'm informed, you know. So I think this makes absolutely sense, because who has the imagination that this is something you have to report in detail? And I mean, if we are talking about taxation, we are talking about every single transfer. We're not just talking about a cryptocurrency saying, okay, I thought I did something like this. You have to explain it in all details, you know.
That is interesting. Okay. And so now, I mean, we talked we talked a lot about taxation. I would love to, I mean, we said in the beginning, you're also an entrepreneur. You built your business, I assume, from the 90s. You know, how did you build it up? How was the journey, and what if you maybe learnings on the way when dealing with clients?
Well, you know, first of all, I started in a tax company with other tax advisors. I was the only lawyer there, so I had to have this this qualification. This was no joke, I can tell you. You know, becoming a tax advisor, especially for a lawyer, is really hard. But anyway, it was interesting. It was important for me to do that. After some years, I had a law firm with two other guys, which was built up very quickly. We had more than 20 people working for us within 2 years, you know. And sometimes things in life are not working the way you expect them to do. So for some reasons, we could not go on together. And I was then going to the office of BBDO, of all kinds of advertisement, you know. BBDO was the leader in advertisement in Germany in those days, and I was responsible there for about 50 agencies for all questions regarding law, taxation, and HR, you know. So I had to learn how to act very quickly if people are asking you, well, I have my meeting in about 59 minutes, and I guess I forgot to pose this question to you. Could you solve it, please? And hopefully in a matter that we don't need to take you in the meeting. Okay, so I had 59 minutes and I had to deliver, you know. This was really hard work sometimes, but it was very, very challenging, very interesting in the end, and I learned a lot. And then in 2008, then I started my own law firm. I started a tax company with another guy together, you know. So, and of course, I started to hold lectures at university in 2009 as a full-time professor officially, but in fact, I was working more in my law firm. You know, I had not the time to have too many lectures in these days, and I stopped that 2 years ago.
Yeah. Ah, okay. So let's talk about that switch from let's say corporate to being to having your own law firm. I assume you brought a few clients there, but with you. But how did you sort of grow? I mean, what was the priority when you started that business, and how did you essentially grow that?
Well, you know, in those days, I started to write down, should I say, small essays, articles, you know, and books. Up to today, I wrote, I guess, about 12 books, something like this. And of course, I made many contacts. It was all about communication, talking to others, you know, showing them what am I doing, where can I help you, just to give them the imagination, just in case they might hear something about a case that could be one for me, that they would hopefully call me, you know. And this was really hard work, building up all these contacts. It took a few years, and after this specialization here in taxation of cryptocurrencies, I find more and more it's absolutely positive finding out your core competences, finding out what really is something you are living for, something you really like, you know. And if you are finding out what is special for you, what you can do in sort of perfection, you know, then it's much more likely that you will be really successful than if you try to do everything. So from this point of view, what is decisive for me today, if people are calling me, sending in emails, of course, I cannot help everybody. I cannot overload things to my staff. You know, I always have to think, can I do this job? Will I do this job? Do I want to do this job? You know, for that reason, I guess it's very important to first of all find out whether the relationship between you and your possible client is working. If it's working, okay, then we can go to the next steps. But if I find out there's some sort of obstacle, you know, then I say no, then I can't do it, you know. I do not have the time anyway, or I recommend somebody else from my network. And I have a really big network right now.
So what are a few like indications for you knowing, okay, this is sort of a relationship that I am willing to take on? Like, is there like a specific moment where you think, all right, this gives me, is a green flag, or are there also red flags maybe?
Yeah, there are red flags, of course. Just in case there's somebody calling me, and my impression is this guy is not honest. You know, he's telling part of the story, and part of the story he's not telling. If I find out something like this, then I say, okay, it doesn't make no sense. Yeah, because I mean, that's my attitude towards work. I try to be honest. You know, I try to find out whether I could give this person advice in a way I would give it to my best friend. Yeah, and if I do not rely on this person, if there's no confidence, not enough confidence, then I cannot do this. Then my performance would not be as good as it could be.
That's actually really, really wise. I can recommend anyone to follow, you know, to follow business principles, just like what their values are. Honesty is definitely one thing that plays a vital role when building long-lasting relationships. So, which brings me to sort of a curiosity: are there any exciting or interesting stories that you've encountered in a recent that you want to sort of share, or share with us?
Well, yes. Perhaps just for somebody who is starting his business, this might be interesting. You know, I remember helping a young lady when I still was working at BBDO, and after having my own law firm, then a few years later, this lady brought one of the biggest clients I ever had. So helping her in those days, not even getting $1 single, not a single euro for that, you know, just doing it because my feeling was I should help her. And this was coming back, let me say, 5 years later. And finding out something like that helps you to invest, because you have to invest as an entrepreneur. You will never know whether an investment turns out to something positive or if it's just wasted, you know? But some of those investments, they come back years after that. So I always think you have to invest, even if nothing's coming back, but you tried, you did it, you know, and it's always a question of trial and error, you know. So this is being an entrepreneur. You will never know whether something turns out good if you don't try it.
That is also something I strongly agree with, because so just as a background, right? We at Blockchain Founders Group, we run an accelerator, and one of the core principles we try to convey to our entrepreneurs, and we have a lot of them, is the effect of compound investments. And so there are a few things you can do today that you might not feel a reaction for in the short term, but you will feel a reaction in the long term. And one of the practices that we try to teach a lot is the effect of marketing, right? You post, you make social media posts today, you might get maybe just a few likes tomorrow and a few days after. But if you're consistent in your approaches, then even in a few years, you will reap fruits for your efforts. And I think this is exactly same with relationships. When you do things, think long term and be consistent, and hopefully it will be returned to you. So now I would love to maybe ask one more question to you from the point of sort of a legal advisor. When you have, or imagining a very young entrepreneur just starting to build a product that is revolutionizing the world, and maybe it's scratching on legal topics, what is the degree of not having the need to consult with a lawyer? How far can I go with something that might be regulatory risky without any, I would say, serious concerns? Or is there something like that?
Yeah, this question, of course, is really hard to answer. So let me put it in another way. It definitely helps if you're a young guy starting your own business, having a sort of experienced business angel at your side. Of course, the business angel doesn't know everything, but in many situations, he might say, well, I have the impression that this might be something that causes risks, you know? So just having this sort of compass of impression, okay, there might be something going wrong. Then, of course, you should follow this trace, you know, not saying, okay, might be not important because I've never heard of this. So I would always try to ask others who are more experienced, to find out whether they could tell you something about it. And if you need a specialist advice, then of course, sometimes it may be really expensive. But on the other hand, if you need specialized advice, then this is not very often cheap to have, you know. So it's better to invest sometimes where you say, okay, this was very much, and you're sure that you're doing the right thing, than saying, okay, I might not need it, and hopefully this will be right. And perhaps one more impression I have, if people finding out that I might perhaps not take their mandate, not making them my client, and they try to offer me more money, then this is mostly a sign to say, no, thank you, you know, because then I would sell my soul. And this is something I would not like to do, you know.
Yeah, okay, thank you for sharing. So now, like to just close off today's conversation, I would love to understand or ask you, as a German retail consumer, I hold maybe crypto tokens. What would be the number one advice you would always give to somebody like me and then many other Germans that hold cryptocurrency?
Well, from the point of view of a lawyer and tax advisor, I would say always check whatever the tax office is going to present to you regarding the taxation of cryptocurrencies. Because my experience is that most of the tax assessments that we get, they do not really explain what they are taxing, and there's a lot of potential helping the clients so that they have to pay much less taxes than the tax office originally thought.
Okay, so never sort of always double check and stay informed, especially when it comes to taxes, because there's potential savings for you.
Yeah.
Perfect. Joerg, any questions from your side?
Not so far, no, not at the moment.
Perfect. So it was quite fun talking to you. Thanks. I would just love to say a few more words about Blockchain Founders Group and then close it off. So Blockchain Founders Group, I mentioned it earlier, we are an accelerator specifically focusing on early stage entrepreneurs. We take in entrepreneurs, we go through a 6 to 12 weeks program, and towards the end of the program, we also provide funding support. So that's what we do. Per year, we run the program twice. And today we had the fireside chat with Professor Dr. Joerg Andres, who is a tax specialist and a lawyer focusing on crypto taxation, which is a very unique combination. I'd like to thank Joerg for having, spending your time with me today and talk about your advice for entrepreneurs, for retail consumers in the taxation and business practice wisdom side of things. So thanks for joining us today, and see you next time.
Yeah, thank you, Max. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Perfect. Bye.